This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian and Mr. Betcher for the first time in a couple of weeks on Breaking Down Security.
Yeah, good to be back.
Nice. So, you, Mr. Betcher, are just back from vacation. Well, you didn't. They call it Hacker Summer Camp. But you were in Vegas for Black Hat and DEF CON then, yeah?
Yep, and B-sides.
Very nice. Okay. Well, let me ask you a question. So you guys were talking at Arsenal about
LogMD, yeah.
LogMD, yeah. So how did that go?
It went great. It was something that we hadn't done before, just kind of talk and have people walk by, kind of like a sideshow sort of thing. And we weren't prepared for the just give a 5-minute spiel and move on, right? That the audience would stop by, come look at our booth or whatever, and have us, try to get them interested in the product or whatnot. And then if not, they'd move on. So yeah, it was a good experience. Instead of just giving like a 1-hour talk, it was more like a 5-minute pitch, right? Here's what the tool is. Here's how it can help you. Here's why you should look into it and that sort of thing. So, lessons learned. We didn't start out too good, but after the first half hour, things got rolling and it started moving along pretty well. So it was different.
So wait, you said you said if people would come by and if they were interested in what you were having to say, then they would stick around. But other than that, they'd give you like the gong show treatment and they'd just walk off?
Yeah, I mean, people would stop by because they wanted to know, they wanted to look at all the Arsenal tools, right, that were going on at the time. So they would go from table to table. If they seemed interested, they would stick around, ask questions, things like that.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something completely different. I thought it was like you had, a bunch of people there for kind of like a pseudo vendor talk. So that obviously was not the case.
No, there was one room with seats, I guess. And people would go in and sit in that room. But The rest of us had tables. I don't know. I think it was something around 8 different tools at the same time. So they had about an hour and 15 minutes or so to be there. Right?
Okay.
So once your hour was up, they would say, "All right, get out of here. We'll get ready for the next group."
Did you get feedback or anything on how you delivered your application or your presentation or anything like that?
Well, Josh was there, and he checked us out for a while and gave us a few pointers. He was like, "Dude, you gotta make this quick, right?" So we sped it up and we got the gist of it after the first half hour or so, and
that's
so
cool.
It seemed to go really smooth after that. But it was a rough start,
Yeah. What was the consensus from from the people? I mean, what kind of questions did they ask you? Did they give you any ideas on, improvements or criticism about the product itself?
No, they didn't. They didn't have any criticism or pointers or anything like that because they didn't know about the tool. They hadn't used it yet. This was almost like a sales pitch type. Here's what it's about. Here's why you need it, things like that. So we had a lot of people that were different backgrounds, right? We had pen testers, we had people from the feds, we had compliance people, and we had students who were interested in security, right? So they would stop by. I'd ask them, what do you do? I had some people say, I work for the federal government, and I really like, this tool. I want to, test it out at work. We had one guy who said, no, 2 guys who said, I can't tell you what I do. I was like, okay, well, if you're this, then you can use it for this reason. If you're do this if you're, you can use it for your clients, et cetera, et cetera. So it was nice to meet a lot of people. Had a couple people at Arsenal come by. They said they like the podcast, they listen, et cetera. So that was
very
good.
Nice.
Met a few listeners there, and a few listeners at the convention itself. Right.
Very cool. So this was the first year you'd ever gone to Black Hat and DEF CON and all those. So what was your opinion of it? Because I've heard some other things from some friends and colleagues for Black Hat and DEF CON.
Well, it was just massive. I really liked B-Sides, how they had a lot of talks. They had a vendor type area that was not too crowded. And, they had, it was a typical B-Sides, right? But it was just bigger than all the rest. It was in a nice venue. So that was good. I wasn't able to go to any of the talks. I was more like hallway con in that one. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they had a booklet with, all the talks on it. It was quite massive. They had some defensive talks on there as well.
Nice.
Black Hat was kind of more, I don't know, vendor-ish, if you will, as far as, oh man, they had just a massive vendor area, just went all out. And who knows how much they paid for it. I think the smallest ones were probably about $15,000.
Oh.
For the couple of days.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And it was a little more. It was a lot more corporate-y than B-Sides, obviously.
Okay.
So, and the talks were good. I went to a couple of talks at Black Hat. They had very big venues, enough so that most of the people that attended could attend each talk. Mm-hmm. So I think they oversized them in that respect. And Black Hat's put on by a company. I think I don't know the name of the company, but I don't know, they own magazines or something. So yeah, it's a company that runs Black Hat.
Okay.
So it was nice. They should be nice because of the amount they charge for people and vendors and things like that. So I guess in that respect you get what you pay for. Now we did crash Ben 10 and Dave Kennedy's class. So we went in there. They invited us in. They mentioned LogMD in the class, so we came on in and gave them some, merchandise or whatnot. And cool. I sat in there for about 20 minutes until they, it was time for us to go in front and say a few words. And I gotta say, man, they that class they did a good job because they take what they know, which is quite a bit, and take little slivers of their knowledge that give the participants in their class like the most value, and they talk about them. They say, here's how a hacker would exploit this or use this, and then here's how you detect that kind of thing. So I think has a lot to do with binary defense and how they work that company and kind of their methodology. And, they take all that knowledge and have a class for people. I think it was very valuable. And I learned things in that, 20 minutes that I was just sitting there waiting to go up. It was a good class. So there's a lot of value there.
Very nice. Yeah, I guess it's, it's not really a surprise, but are you and Michael going to be speaking at DerbyCon? I know that LogMD got accepted for a stable talk or a track talk. Or is that just Michael doing it?
Just Michael. I don't know which. I think he submitted a couple of talks, so I'm not sure which one it was. I don't even know if he knows. It has to be posted or something. So
yeah, well, they posted it as of yesterday, which was August 13th. I didn't get accepted at my talk only because I really don't remember what I put in for a talk, and I've never talked at a big event before, so I wasn't really expecting a lot out of it. So or getting accepted. So But yeah, according to Michael Goff on his Facebook page, LogMD was accepted for a talk. So I don't know if it's a track or stable. So congratulations to you both for that. So there you go.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's going to talk about Windows logging or if he's going to talk about finding hackers or finding malware. I'm not sure which talk it was, but yeah, he did get accepted. So I'll have to wait till it's posted on the website to find out which one was accepted, because he submitted more than one.
Yeah.
So yeah, It wasn't just about LogMD, but basically, here's how I do this, right? And probably he'll slip in LogMD. Here's how LogMD can help you with finding hackers or whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, he said honored to be selected to speak at DerbyCon again this year. See you there. Hugs to all. www.logmd. So, yeah, you're right. Maybe he didn't. He did submit more than one. I guess that's the important thing. That's how you get better chances of entry. You have to submit more than one talk. So, so what was some of the bad thing? Well, I don't say bad things, but the negative things about Black Hat and DEF CON. I mean, other than some of the stuff I heard about the crowds and. Apparently some people are still waiting in line for their badge. They were spending an hour and a half in line to get a badge, and they ran out of badges on the first day. That was just a minor thing. What was some of the other things that you had noticed at your first, hacker summer break?
Well, yeah, they did have issues with the badges that everybody heard about.
Yeah.
The badges at DEF CON are puzzles, right? Yep. So you have to figure out what this badge does, what it contains, and there are clues everywhere, in the lanyard, on the badge itself, hanging up in the hallways, on the floors. So it's a puzzle, a challenge to figure out. So they had a certain number of badges there, and if you got there early, you got your badge, right? And then they ran out. I think, from what I heard, they had an issue at customs. They were imported, and a bunch of them were held up there. And then on the second day of DEF CON, I think we could trade in our paper badges for real badges. Unfortunately, the second batch wasn't vetted through, so they didn't have the firmware on them and things like that. But you still got a badge, right? So
that's cool.
It's still a cool looking badge or whatnot with the components and stuff. So
yeah.
That they had issues there, and a lot of people were complaining, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I was able to trade in my paper badge for a real badge, so there you go. Even though it didn't have the software on it, and maybe I'll try to get the software at some point and load it up.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I know they go through a lot every year to get those. To get a new challenge every year. It's like a CTF in a badge. You have to go through and solve the puzzles and figure out the clues. And there's always a write up or two, on websites about those. And I actually saw the CTF, the DEF CON CTF. They released a VM of the last 7 years of CTFs in a VM format. So you download this ISO, and it's basically got all the previous 7 years in a nice handy bundle. So if you wanted to do ones like you haven't done them before, then you have the ability to do those. So
yeah, that would be excellent practice to do ones from the past.
Oh yeah.
It's just like taking a class, right? You do your homework, you study the practice exams or whatever, and then you're more prepared for the real test. If you ever want to do a CTF at DEF CON, that's the best place to start, is the ones from the past, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
They might be indicative of future ones, right? Because it's more than likely it's the same people that are going to do next year's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, that kind of brings us to our own topic, isn't it? We did a CTF of our own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It seems like I don't know, when did we end that? Like middle of last month. Yeah, it's just taking us a little while to get to it because of the hacker summer camp and everything. But our winner, actually, and our other winner, we actually had 2 winners of our CTF, only one official winner, but he wanted to do a blog post on how he figured out the majority of the CTF. So I told him to wait until we done the podcast to do our write-up of our CTF, and he agreed. So we appreciate for him waiting. So we had, so a little intro. Last year we did a DerbyCon ticket giveaway. I think we gave away 2 tickets last year as well. And we wanted to do a CTF last year, but we just didn't even know where to start, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Poor planning on our part. So, we were like, well, we won't do that again this year. Next year we'll do much better. We'll actually plan for it. Well, we planned a little bit for it. And we had an idea of where we wanted to go and how many steps, and ours wasn't I don't think ours would be called a CTF. Could you call it a CTF, or was it more like a scavenger hunt kind of thing?
Yeah, more like a scavenger hunt kind of thing. I mean, sometimes life gets in the way, right? And you plan on things, and it takes a little longer, or it's not as good as you hoped. But yeah, we came through, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it was over the course of about 6 or 7 podcasts where we were releasing these things out. And I was surprised at the amount of turnout we had. We had about 15 people in the final stages of the CTF. And I think it was a wide enough area of expertise. I mean, you needed to understand, file types. You needed to understand metadata. You needed to understand some encryption ciphers. We have some lessons learned on our own. But we wanted to just go through real quick and talk about the 5 stages that we had done, and some things that we wanted to do but couldn't actually, I couldn't get them to work. Mr. Betcher got them to work, but I didn't. So. So we had 5 stages, and the first stage was relatively easy. If you listen to our 2016 number 17 podcast on networking and education, and we started talking about the podcast at the very beginning. If you just go into the properties of that podcast, you will find a URL that pointed you to a Google Doc, because the other requirement was we didn't want to spend a fortune on this CTF. We didn't want to make badges and stuff. We didn't want to spend a lot of money. So yeah, that just sent you to a link to a Google Doc. So that one was relatively easy. And then we waited a little while for to get enough people to show up to it. And the second leg of the podcast was when we were talking about. We gave a clue in the podcast talking about John Wayne movies.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, remember that one?
Yep.
So, the John Wayne movie that everybody had issues with was it The Quiet Man? I think it was The Quiet Man. Let me double check that. Because we wanted to get, actually, we did the CTF for kind of selfish reasons. We wanted people to listen to the show, and then, if you really wanted to go to DerbyCon, then you could do that. Yeah, it was, okay. So we talked about The Quiet Man. We talked about a John Wayne movie that had a character in it that also had the name of a cipher. And if you go to IMDb and look on some John Wayne movies, The Quiet Man had a character by the name of Reverend Playfair, and on the Google Doc there was a clue to the Playfair, to the cipher that you had to solve on the day that we told you it was going to happen. I pasted the cipher text of a Playfair cipher with The Quiet Man being the key that you needed at the beginning of the cipher to be able to figure out the answer. So that one was relatively easy. The only thing we got wrong on that was, I think we had mentioned in the podcast that it had won an Academy Award, when in fact it had just been nominated and there was nothing fancy. So, Mr. Betcher, I think you had stage 3.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Was that the one where we gave a hash?
Yeah, that was the one with the hash.
And so the hash was also the clue, or the and it was also the password, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was.
Yep.
So how was that the clue though? What did you have to do to make that happen?
Well, the password was also a clue because it was a hash. Now you had to find out what the hash belonged to. And the way you could do that was go into VirusTotal and plug in the hash, and then you would get the name of the file. And it just so happens that the name of the file was a steganography program.
Okay.
So there you go. And I'm not sure. I don't remember how. Oh, okay. So if you're dealing with steganography, then you need some kind of a file, right? Either a picture or a video or a sound file, right? Yep. So we deal a lot in sound files, MP3s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that was it. You download the podcast and you can use the hash not only to find out what tool to use, but for the password, right? And your clue was embedded in the MP3 of the podcast itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you actually had to submit the steganography software to VirusTotal as though it were a Trojan, right?
Well,
because it didn't exist in VirusTotal to begin with.
Right. Because they had generated it. They had just generated a new version or something like that. So yeah, I uploaded it to VirusTotal, and then when you put the hash in, it wasn't a Trojan or anything like that, because VirusTotal has good files in it too. So if you have a file that's questionable, you can upload it to VirusTotal and see if it's, been vetted or not. So I chose a steganography program that actually there was a program that I preferred to use, but they generated new versions every time you download it, which was kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I didn't choose that one. I chose one that had been there for a while. So if you uploaded it to VirusTotal, it was a little bit older. So again, you kind of trusted it because it was there, and then you could use that. And then I had to find one that actually, had the hash in VirusTotal and was able to fit in the password field, because like a SHA-256 might not fit. I think we ended up using SHA-1 or MD5, so I don't remember. It was a few months ago. So
yeah, and the other thing was when we were mangling the MP3, one, it had to still be able to play as an MP3, and two, if there were any kind of encoding issues, I didn't want it screwing up like iTunes or Google Play Store, people being able to download and listen to it or anything like that. So whatever we had to do had to be non-destructive to the MP3 itself. So that was pretty cool. I actually got that one and made that one work. That one was fairly good. So once that worked, I think that flag lasted all of about. I think it was about 2 days on that one, which was good. I mean, it was about 2 days went by before somebody had actually mentioned that, and I think you can still find it. That was in our DNS sinkholing podcast when we talked about DNS sinkholing, the 23rd episode of this year. So we waited a while for stages 4 and 5 because I was like, well, I think by that time I think we realized we'd started the CTF a little too soon. We'd started it almost immediately after the tickets went on sale. We'll wait next time until people start getting desperate and then wanting to start to play, because I'm actually now getting emails about, hey, is the CTF still going on? Now I understand how Dave Kennedy feels about the talking list. How he was like, people are asking him questions even after they'd sent the emails out. So, so stage 4 and 5, I thought was going to be great because Mr. Betcher, he's like, hey, we'll do a polyglot and we'll make it make it all cool and everything. And I was like, I don't even know what a polyglot is. So I had to do research on what a polyglot was, and you actually got it to work. And for those who don't know what a polyglot is, could you maybe explain what that is?
Well, a polyglot kind of merges a couple of files together. Let's just, for the sake of simplifying it, let's just say you're able to concatenate an image file and an MP3 file, right? So if you name the extension MP3, then it'll play as a soundtrack. If you name the extension MP4, it'll play as a video, but a different video, right?
Yeah.
So you take two separate files, merge them together, and based on the extension, it'll open up as whatever the extension was. So that's what a polyglot is, and you can you can merge like a text file with a JPEG. It's the same file. You just name it differently and open up with a different tool. So there you go. That's what a polyglot is. It has the same hash, so you can have two files that have two different names. You open them up and they have two different things in them, but it has the same hash. It's the same file.
Yeah. And we tested this. We actually got it to work initially with just a text file and an image file. We couldn't find one exactly that worked as an MP3 and like a text file. Ideally, again, it had to be non-destructive. The MP3 had to play. Couldn't get mangled when it went into iTunes or what have you. We finally found a program that did that, right? You found a program that would actually take the MP3 and the text file, right, and make that work.
No, that's it. It was manual work. You had to open it up in a hex editor and actually merge the two files together, right? So
how did you do that in a hex editor? I was just trying. Okay, so maybe that was the issue that I had. I was just trying to concatenate them together, and that didn't work.
Right. So you had to be careful and merge them in the right place and in the right order.
Okay,
right?
So I was screwed. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta get down to the binary level most of the time and make sure you put them in the right spot in the right order. So So I've seen a polyglot of like 4, maybe 5 different files.
Yeah.
Well, 5 different types of file all in one file. And that was pretty cool, but that took some work, right? Took a lot of work. And it's not my thing, but I was able to get 2 of them and put them together. So,
yeah. Well, okay. Here's my thing. What good is a polyglot for?
What good is it? Well, maybe you're trying to slip in a video as a text file. It's just some obfuscation, right? It's not really, it might fool somebody.
Yeah.
Into thinking, hey, it's just a text file, right? But it ends up being a video or something, right?
Well, so
it's just a picture, but it has text in it, right?
Yeah. Could you take a picture of something, say cat video or cat picture, take a web shell or something, embed it in as a polyglot, and then somehow have the file get renamed to .php or .exe, and then automatically you now have a cat picture that is already, an executable. That would work, right?
It depends on the standards of the program being used, right? Or the CFP of the type of the file, right?
CFP?
Or RFP, request for comment.
RFP.
Okay. RFC.
RFC. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So whatever the standard is, right? So it all depends. You
could use that to
concatenating them. You have to do it in a particular way, and it has to, and they have to be compatible with each other to be able to do that.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, that's why I failed. Okay. So what happened was Mr. Betcher's like, oh yeah, you can do this. Just open it in a hex editor or whatever. See you later. I'm going on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, man, I'm supposed to, have this out, and I've got like 3 days to figure it out. I spent 2 of those trying to figure it out. And, he was like, oh yeah, contact, let me know. I'll be in the middle of nowhere, but I'll still have internet. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to bother you with that. That was something I really wanted to do. And maybe that's something that will show up next year, in next year's CTF. But yeah, we had about 20 people waiting for stage 4, and I wanted to make sure it went out, on time, which was like Monday. It was like Monday. Yeah, it was like sometime mid-July. It was the 15th of July, so it went out 15th of July. and I was trying to, get that out on time, and I said, well, no, the 11th. I'm sorry, the 11th. So I was, wanting to get that out on time. So I decided, to table the idea of the polyglot until we, could figure that out. And I wanted something that, I could do myself because I didn't want to have to worry about, calling up Mr. Betcher and having his wife get mad at me because they were on vacation and he was trying to do work. So I had done some war games online. There's online war games like Over the Wire is a good one if you're wanting to, learn various concepts or topics or something. Good for write-ups if you want to learn how to do write-ups. Those are fairly easy to do write-ups for. And I had gotten the idea into my head of there was one exercise on one of these CTF war games that I'd done where it was a file. You got a file, and it was a text file, or at least it looked like a text file. You try to read the file and it's gibberish. So you had to learn about the file command. So file, and then you type the name of the file, and it will tell you, according to whatever the hex at the beginning of it is, what type of file it was. So, one of these exercises has you go through about 5-6 iterations of, various tar files and BZIP files and EXE files and JPEGs and everything. And I'd gotten it into my head that, I'll take a picture of something fairly famous, like, someplace that nobody knows about, take a picture of Bletchley Park, for instance. And I would, edit the file and put a little, run a little GIMP on it and run a piece on it. Because the idea was I was going to use the ciphertext for the Enigma cipher as the final flag. So in the picture, I had put basically that if you look inside, you will figure out how to go to DerbyCon. And I typed it DE space RB space YC space ON. And on the Enigma wheels, you had to set the various keys to, put that in, to decipher the ciphertext. So I thought I was all slick and everything, and with this picture of Bletchley Park that I didn't think anybody would figure out, and that stage 4 was solved in about 30 minutes. So I was feeling real smart that day.
Damn.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody apparently knew what it was except for me because I've never actually visited there. It's on my bucket list. But the other bad thing was I sent the email out about 30 minutes early because I was creating a draft. And I had created the draft, and I was like, okay, I'm going to save this and then let it go out 30 minutes later. Well, I'd accidentally hit send 30 minutes before the time it was supposed to go out. So I'm sweating bullets. I'm thinking, okay, great. If somebody solves this, before anybody else is supposed to get it, they're going to get mad at me. Thankfully, we packaged stage 4 and 5 together. So stage 4 was unwrapping the file to get to the Bletchley Park JPEG with the information on the front. And then stage 5 was the ciphertext that you got by opening the EXIF and looking at the EXIF data on the picture. So it did cost me $10 for this CTF because I actually had to buy an EXIF data tool because the command line EXIF data tool is just a whole hot dumpster fire of a mess that I was like, well, okay, I want to get this right and I don't want to screw it up. So I took the PNG, I took the EXIF data on it, and I put this huge ciphertext in there that was an Enigma cipher. So the idea was if you look inside of this picture, you're going to get the key to go to DerbyCon. So I think some people overthought it, but it went for about 2.5 days before we actually had one winner. Tyler Hudak actually emailed me and said, "Hey, here's the the code, or here's the instructions." And he didn't want to tweet it out because he already had a ticket, and he said he was going to go anyway, so he already had a ticket and he wasn't worried about it. So the other guy actually reached out. He said that he used a couple of different websites before I actually found the right one. So one lessons learned is you can't always. I didn't use the most popular decryptor for the Enigma cipher, so that was something that got me, and I got a lot of other people too, because apparently there was several more popular ones than the one I used. The same thing happened with the Playfair cipher. I didn't use the like Google #1 searched for Playfair cipher decoder. So that threw some people too. So yeah. But a lot of people seem to like it. I mean, I was explaining it to my CSEC East group the other night, and they were like, "Wow, I wish I had gone and done that, but I wasn't going to go to DerbyCon." I was like, "Oh well, you could still do it for fun. Yeah, that was the important thing." So
yeah, it's important to hone your skills like that. By trying these CTFs and start small. Start with. I know I learned a lot with the what's the one with OWASP puts out?
The what?
The one OWASP has for testing web apps.
Oh, it's not damn vulnerable.
Well, it's close.
BWAP.
Right.
BWAP. BWAP is or WebGoat.
WebGoat.
WebGoat. Yeah.
So I did WebGoat a while back and went through them all, and you kind of learn how to do that kind of thing, and it's a good place to start, and then you can find harder ones and get better and better.
Yeah.
Right. So it's fun.
Yep. Yeah. Those I definitely learned quite a bit about file types and steganography bits and stage 2. So when you at the Playfair cipher, when you decrypted it, there was a thing that said, "Hey, you found the second flag, woo pig." And the way the Playfair cipher works, double letters often end up, at least the double O's ended up as XX. So a lot of people ended up, because I used the wrong cipher website apparently, they were getting like WXX pig, and they were like, "I don't understand what that means," but I kind of gave it was more than one person had the issue, so I gave them a pass. But the fact with the woo pig thing, my wife is she went to the University of Arkansas, which is the Razorbacks, and they like to call the pigs, woo pig, when they're in the stadium. So I had to put something in that was I thought was esoteric enough that you actually had to be in the presence of the code to be able to give me that answer. So that was the other thing that came up. So. Some lessons learned that, make sure that it works, make sure your ciphers, if you do those kinds of things, work on multiple websites. Maybe use the most popular website instead of one that's 2 or 3 links down. Yeah. Especially for that Enigma one. I mean, we had people, I guess the most popular ones like this Flash, Java, HTML5-ish thing where you've got like these gears and you have to turn them and stuff. And I was just using one that was about 3 or 4 links down that was, basically just put, 2 letters in these boxes and it was going to, decrypt it for, or, encrypt it for you. So I was using something that was really simple, and these people were using this really complicated thing that didn't actually do what that site did. So one of the things you want to remember when you're doing those kinds of things is that not every site will decrypt them properly. And since my spare Enigma machine is sitting in my storage locker, I couldn't gain access to it. So that there was that. So. But yeah, it was great talking to the people. I didn't give out a lot of hints, and the ones I did, it was like generic. It was like, guys like, "Hey, I can't get this to, decrypt or whatever." I was like, well, there is more than one website out there for that. That's about all I would say for people. I didn't give them any direct, help. But it was nice that Tyler Hudak, who has been on the show talking about malware and stuff, he really enjoyed it. He said that he would be interested in helping us next year with, creating a CTF, and I'm going to hold him to that. He's going to DerbyCon, and I'm going to pick his brain about that a little bit. But yeah, I would love to actually do a proper one, maybe with a VM or something next year. Maybe we'll get more, in depth and maybe do more fancy-ist. Yeah, and make that work. So.
Wow, sounds interesting. I hope it's. I hope people had fun, and we'll look for a bigger challenge next year, right?
Yeah, and we promise not to screw you over if you were stuck at stage 3 and couldn't figure it out. So, but yeah, the actual guy who won, his name was Scott M. So he won. So congratulations to Scott for doing so. He hasn't gotten his ticket yet because I hadn't sent it to him, but he definitely will. We'll be getting that in the next few days. So, so is there anything else, Mr. Brett, you'd like to talk about? I actually have something that came up in the news today that I wanted to discuss a little bit about operational security. But if you've got something else you'd like to talk about, or something you'd like to discuss, I would love for you to do so.
No, I mean the cons that I went to, the Hacker Summer Camp, it was a good experience. Right, a lot of people there, a lot of smart people. I mean, they had car hacking and hardware hacking, and it's just massive amounts of stuff at DEF CON. So it was crowded, but they're moving to a new venue next year, so hopefully that'll work out for the best. And it'll be a quarter century of DEF CON, right, next year. So I don't know if I'll go. It all depends on my schedule and everything, but yeah, it's something to behold, definitely.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna at least try to maybe get a DEF CON ticket next year. I may not go to Black Hat, or maybe I'll buy a ticket for B-Sides and then just go to DEF CON and
yeah. So it's DEF CON, I believe, is cash only at the door. You don't have to buy them in advance.
Oh, that's good. So wait, how do you get your badge then? You have to pay cash at the door to get your badge?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's something to know, I guess. There's no way to buy online tickets ahead of time.
Well, see, I paid about a month or two in advance because I was buying a Black Hat ticket. So I went ahead and got a DEF CON ticket at the same time.
Oh, you can bundle?
So you can do that. So Black Hat will buy the tickets from DEF CON and give it to the people that attend Black Hat. Nice.
Okay, I didn't know that. That might be something to do too. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. So this happened just a day ago, as a matter of fact. So there's probably going to be more information coming out about it. But, it's August the 14th, Sunday the August 14th. So the Olympics are going on down in Rio de Janeiro. Summer Olympics. And, the United States team has just been kicking a lot of people's asses in the medal count. And, there'd been a lot of stories about the Rio Olympics, the preparations for it, security involved. There's, people were, wondering why Rio was given the games because, there's a lot of crime in the area. So one of the things the Rio organizers did was, they beefed up security a lot. They put, basically armed, military. According to the New York Times article I'm reading here, they said that the area around the Olympic Park and the Athletes Village looked like a military compound sometimes. But there was a story about Ryan Lochte, who is one of the Olympic gold medalists, and 3 of the U.S. teammates. They were held up Sunday morning by gunpoint as they were in a taxi. So they're also highlighting that there were other people who were also attacked. 2 coaches for the Australia rowing team were attacked and robbed. Some people in the Athletes Village actually was robbed of their belongings during a fire drill. So it seems to me that people had a false sense of security, or they assumed that their security was taken care of in a foreign country. And I know that a lot of other countries don't have to deal with this, but as Americans, we're probably a higher target than most. I mean, you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the standard of living is a lot lower there than it is here. So there's a lot of people, a lot of Americans go over there. They're considered the haves. Yeah. Right, and the criminals there are the have-nots, and they think, well, Americans carry stuff, right?
Yeah.
You steal their wallet, they're going to have something in that wallet.
Exactly. Yeah, and I just think it's, I have gone, and I've traveled a lot. Actually, I've traveled a lot more since I was out of the Navy than when I was in it. But there's a lot of times that I see people from obviously from America because they're wearing the "Don't Tread on Me" T-shirts, or the camouflaged U.S. American ball caps, "These colors don't run" T-shirts. I mean, you got some real people who just don't understand the idea of the blending in, and I don't know if it's because they don't care or they just assume that nothing bad is going to happen to them wherever they visit. I try to blend in as much as possible when I go to countries because, one, I don't want to be seen as a tourist, even though I probably stick out like a sore thumb because I wear sunglasses a lot. It's kind of a thing I do. I noticed in Italy when I went, nobody's wearing sunglasses except me, so they automatically probably assumed I was an American anyway. But I just think that a lot of people don't think about their environment when they are outside of what is comfortable, which is the United States. For the most part, when you're walking around a city or down a street in the United States, you don't expect to have a lot of issues. It's not like I visited Morocco, for a day and a half once, and I was very, I hate to use the word cognizant, but I was very cognizant of the fact that I was in fact in a foreign country, and people were not thrilled, some of them, with the fact that I was there. So I didn't do a lot to attract attention to myself. I didn't wear things that proclaim that I was an American, or you try to keep those things low key, and I think that's important. And I think that's a kind of a hacker mentality too. When you're breaking into a network, you don't want to proclaim that you're there. You don't want to, hey, look at me, I'm here. You try to keep that low profile. You try to see what I did there with the whole bringing it back around.
I did.
Yeah, well, it's helpful. So, do you do a lot? I know you do a lot of driving with your family. Do you travel a lot to foreign countries? Have you ever, been to Canada or Mexico or, elsewhere?
Very little.
Yeah.
Right. So, hey, there's a lot to see in this country. So I'm trying to show the family, go as many places as we can here. But yeah, occasionally outside the country. But there's, I'm not going to take a trip to, Rio de Janeiro for vacation.
Yeah.
There are very nice places there, and there's a lot of nice places right next to the slums.
Sure.
Yeah. You have to be careful.
Yeah, and I think that and the thing was, I don't know if they were where they were when they were attacked, if they were, because it looks like that they had set up like a for lack of a better word, there was a green zone, that the safe zone where they could be guaranteed modicum of more safety than they were. I don't know if they were outside of that, if they were hanging out with other folks in that area, and they were just outside of where they needed to be. But from what it reads like, they didn't take the guy who pulled them over very seriously. Lochte, as a matter of fact, wasn't going to do anything. The guy was impersonating a police officer, so Lochte didn't actually comply until he had a gun stuck to his head, and then actually he decided to comply. Fortunately, all they took was his money and his wallet, but they left his cell phone and his Olympic credentials. So, but all I could think of was, this could have been very much more than just 4 U.S. athletes were robbed at gunpoint. This could have been 4 U.S. athletes gunned down in Rio de Janeiro.
Easily. Right.
Yeah. It could have been a very bad thing. And I don't know. This is along with security awareness training. They were given a security briefing about things you should and shouldn't do in Rio. And it's obvious these 4 people didn't follow it, or they thought, oh, this isn't going to, this is not going to be a problem for me because it's not going to happen to me. These things don't happen to me. And when in fact it actually did. So, I mean, again, we're seeing, examples of, training that wasn't effective it may have been effective for, say, 80% of the people, but, there were still that 20% that, it's never going to happen to me. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to do anyway. Never mind the consequences.
Right. And it has a lot to do with recon too, right? Know your environment as well.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So, when I was in the Navy and when I was a government civilian, one of the things they required for you when you were going overseas was you to get a State Department briefing to find out where you're going. So, if you're going to Italy and France and something, they tell you, well, be careful. There's, protests on the trains. When we were in Italy, they had a socialist protest on one of the mass transit systems. And so, nothing bad happened to us. I mean, they were just marching to wherever they needed to be, but it could have been much worse depending on, if we were wearing something that was considered derogatory. We may have been wearing green shirts, and that would have been like, the bad color that, the socialists don't like, and then we could have been made a target. So you got, these kinds of briefings, they need to be done. They need to be listened to. You need to understand them, and you need to heed the advice of people who say, okay, this is the safe zone we've set up for you in the Olympic Village and, the area between the Olympic Village and the Athlete Village, or these are the safe zones in Rio where you can go, where you're not going to get mugged or, robbed at gunpoint. Don't go to these parts, and, even if these are considered safe zones, always keep an eye on your environment, your surroundings, people who might be following you, those kinds of things. So you have to make yourself a hard target. I just, some of these dudes are young and, they don't get out much, and I can understand that. So it just kind of bugs me that, this had to be a thing. So.
Right. Yeah. It's, some of it's their fault, right? Even though someone else was the perpetrator.
Yeah.
It was they who may not have followed the rules. Now, I'm not in their shoes. I don't know what happened.
Yep.
But, try to do as much research as you can on where you're going. Like you said, do a debrief, right, with locals or whatever, or law enforcement,
Yeah.
I don't know what they went through, whatever kind of security training or anything like that. But yeah. A lot of times when that happens, some people put themselves in that situation.
Yeah, and depending on where you're living, I mean, you go through anti-terrorism training. They tell you, if you're driving a personal vehicle, that inspect the vehicle before you get in the car, because it's very easy for somebody to just drop a nice package up underneath the wheel well that's going to explode 30 minutes after you get in the car. That kind of thing. You want to For me, I guess I've grown up with the whole security thing, being in the Navy and what have you. And some of these kids might be the first time they've ever been outside the country. But, they definitely have some blame in it. But, we can only teach them so much. I guess that's there's going to be some lessons learned for Rio as well, and for the Olympic community. I'm just glad it was only, they only lost some wallets and some money, so it could have been much, much worse. So.
And that happens here in America as well. It's like,
that's true.
There's a dark alley. Do I want to go down the dark alley, or do I want to play it safe and go down the main thoroughfare, right? So there's that too.
Yeah, walk through the dark alley, or walk 500 more feet through a lit parking lot or something. Yeah, it's a value judgment, I guess. It's take your chances. Is this going to happen to me if I go this way? It may not, but then what happens if it actually does? So yeah, it's all about risk analysis, I guess, in your head, and some people go by a different set of rules. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm off my soapbox. I read about this at lunch when I was at the zoo with my family, and I was like, man, that's I would hope that never happened to me, but of course I don't take chances like that. So that's just me. Yeah. I guess it's Yeah, maybe that's my loss by not having adventures. I guess they have a story now where this guy put a gun to my head. I can laugh about it now, ha ha ha. But yeah, so. Well, all right, I'm done for the week, Mr. Betcher. How would people go ahead and get a hold of you to talk about LogMD or to talk about what you're going to be doing at DerbyCon if you wanted to?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter at BetcherPwned. And then we can DM each other or whatnot. And if you're going to any conventions that I'm going to, we can, meet or whatever and have a discussion. Be awesome.
Okay. All right. Hey, speaking of which, are you going to be going to that Initech thing that's in Austin August 5th? Is it like August 15th?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I know that there's something going on. The local ISSA branch in Austin supposed to have a table or something, but it's something called Initech. I don't know. So, yeah, I was just wondering if you were going to be going to that. So, anyway, you can follow the official BrakeSec podcast Twitter at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. And you can follow me. I'm at Brian Brake on there. That's BRYAN, BRAKE. Oh, by the way, the CTF is over for a DerbyCon ticket, but we do have a raffle for a ticket as well if you want to join that. And since the DerbyCon speaker list is out, and if you were supposed to be a speaker but your talk got rejected, you may need a ticket. So, the minimum, it'll cost you $20 for a ticket. Which is an entry for the drawing. If you want to support us on Patreon, and we thank all of our Patreon supporters, if you want to enter for a drawing, it's $20 for a month on our Patreon, or you can get an entry every $50 you donate to Hackers for Charity. So we have a couple of people, they've donated $150 to Hackers for Charity on the Hackers for Charity website, and then they send us the receipt saying that they had donated, with their name and how much they donated. So every $50. So like our friend Eric here just donated $150 to Hackers for Charity this morning because he had found out that we have a drawing going on. So yeah, just email us at, bds.podcast@gmail.com and we'll enter you into the drawing. I think the drawing is going to be probably next Saturday, which would be the 20th of August. I think we're going to do that at probably around 5 p.m. Pacific. So what we'll do is take all the names and entries, which we have Sonny, Tom, Trevor, Eric, and David, and Michael so far. And between all of them, there's about 20 entries. So some people have donated quite a hefty sum to Hackers for Charity. We're going to randomize those names and draw a name out of a hat and make that happen. So there's still plenty of time. You've got another whole week to decide whether or not you want to go to DerbyCon and get your money in. So, yeah. So, and then you can come and hang out with us. I mean, is that a plus? Is that a plus? It is if you're if you're hanging with Mr. Betcher, maybe not with me, but yeah. So.
Well, it depends on what you were doing the whole day to lead up to that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I like, I'll sit down with a nice hard cider or, red wine, and we can talk like we did last year. It was definitely good times, DerbyCon. So, if you've still got plenty of time to get, flights and stuff to Louisville for that, which is a month from the 25th. I think it's on the 25th. So, all right. So we're on we have Patreon, we have Facebook, we have a Twitter, we have LinkedIn. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes. We have an RSS feed. All that information is in our show notes. If you want to go to www.breakingsecurity.com, all that information is in our show notes. So, Mr. Betcher, I'll talk to you again next week. You have a great week, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Everyone have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.